Our theme this month is resilience. How timely is that? It's a theme that we've returned to over the years again and again because these times require it of us. We need to nurture resilience in ourselves, in one another, and in our community. Now, a common misunderstanding is to think of the quality of resilience as an ability to bounce back. This may be true in the case of a rubber ball, but when it comes to human beings, the goal is something different. Our experiences change us. For us to be resilient is to remain healthy, hopeful, and even joyful in the face of suffering, loss, trauma, and challenge. These words are found in a poem called Optimism by Jane Hirshfield. More and more I have come to admire resilience, not the simple resistance of a pillow whose foam returns over and over to the same shape, but the sinuous tenacity of a tree. Finding the light newly blocked on one side, it turns in another. A blind intelligence, true, but out of such persistence arose turtles, rivers, mitochondria, figs, all this resinous, unretractable earth. So we too are of this resinous, unretractable earth, with the capacity for that sinuous tenacity. And today we'll explore that capacity together. Come, let us worship together.
That was a dirty, dirty trick. Hit me like 1,000 pounds upon my heart. Now I'm looking up, I'm shaking my fist. How can being alive feel like dying? This ocean is rocking me hard. This ocean is rocking me hard. I won't let my spirit leave me, no. I need to remember my name, remember my home in the stars. This ocean is rocking me hard. Oh, my soul is jaded but naive. I've always felt so trapped within my life. Is there meaning here, or am I missing the point? Will the waters part for me? This ocean is rocking me hard. This ocean is rocking me hard. But I won't let my spirit leave me. I need to remember my name, remember my home in the stars. This ocean is rocking me hard. I need to remember my name, remember my home in the stars. This ocean is rocking me hard. I used to be that little girl walking around with a bruised soul. She pretended to be fine, but just behind her eyes it was always raining. She used to think that it was God who could make a world so beautiful, then fill it up with pain. She'd done just what they told her, but it hadn't turned out right, and now her prayers felt empty. But she still has songs to sing, and she still has that spark within. She still rises up each day and she shakes off the shame, 'cause she knows it isn't hers anymore. Oh, the sun comes up in the morning and she's still here. Well, the years, they stacked up tall and they weighed down on her shoulders. She tried to wear a smile all the time so the world would never see her. Then maybe she'd feel safe. But the pain just kept on coming, and really shouldn't she know better than to think she gets to heal? And in her isolation, she begins to hear a whisper from somewhere deep inside her soul, and it says, you still have songs to sing, and you still have that spark within. You still rise up each day and you shake off the shame, 'cause you know it isn't yours anymore. Oh, the sun comes up in the morning and you're still here. You still have songs to sing, and you still have that spark within. You still rise up each day and you shake off the shame, 'cause you know it isn't yours anymore. Oh, the sun comes up in the morning and you're still here. We're all still here. Ooh. We're all still here. Oh, we're all still here.
So I've said it before, and I'm sure I will say it again. My bedrock faith is in the resilience of the human spirit. I've seen it over and over again, so have you. Somehow, people find ways to navigate life's most treacherous and heartbreaking terrain. We keep breathing, we keep moving, and eventually the path appears before us. Today, though, I want to reflect on what are the qualities of mind, heart, and spirit that enable us to do this. What helps us bend without breaking? How is it that we're able to find a way out of no way? To stay kind, human, to respond creatively in the face of oppression, violence, and suffering. Next week, we'll look at habits and practices, things we do, but today's service focuses on thoughts and belief. What are the things that we say to ourselves that help us become more resilient? And what are the things we might want to stop saying to ourselves? How do the things we choose to believe impact our capacity to respond with creativity and grace to the stresses of life? It's sort of like in our children's story. Little Hem let go of old messages in order to embrace new ideas and left behind those signs. He left behind the ones that were keeping him stuck and found new ones, touchstones to help him remain resilient and flexible. So we're going to ask ourselves, as we navigate life, what are the signs we want to take down because they're not helpful anymore? And what do we want to put up as reminders to ourselves or invitations to people who are also trying to find their way? So let's start here. The studies consistently show that the most important factor in resiliency is a supportive social network. This runs in direct contradiction to the cult of rugged individualism. How many of us got the message growing up that to be strong means being able to handle things on our own? Maybe stiff upper lip, don't air your dirty laundry. All right, we're going to take those signs down off the walls in the maze, and we're going to replace them with these. Strong and resilient people seek out help. Strong and resilient people lean on one another. Strong and resilient people aren't ashamed to be vulnerable. It's okay to need one another. Shall I say those things again? Okay. Strong and resilient people seek out help. Strong and resilient people lean on one another. Strong and resilient people aren't ashamed to be vulnerable. It's okay to need other people. Yep. If that's the only thing you take home with you today, I'm good. When the going gets tough, don't hunker down, don't retreat, reach out. I remind people all the time, it feels great to support someone when they ask you for help, right? So why wouldn't you give that gift to the people who love you? Another factor that's been shown to support resiliency is a sense of agency. A sense that what we do matters. That's the tagline for the church. And it's hard sometimes to maintain that sense of agency. This week's Senate vote, for example, it carried echoes of the Kavanaugh confirmation, party politics, overriding constitutional responsibilities. It feels powerless. I think of the way I've gradually given up contacting our national legislators because I'm tired of getting their snarky form letters. So I'm feeling like at that level, my voice and my vote don't count. So when I dwell on these things and sink into that sense of powerlessness, I lose that sense of agency that's so important for resiliency. Instead, we can focus on the local elections, the work the city commissions are doing, the small victories like expanding the discrimination ordinance. We can look at the Citizens Climate Lobby or the way Greta Thunberg has shifted our conversation about climate change. For that matter, I just have to look at all of the things that this church community is able to do. Not only are we building a new building, but we've supported and sustained so many local charities over the last 10 years through our Month of Sunday program. And this week, we're hosting Family Promise, which is going to make a very concrete difference in the lives of the families that we're opening our doors and our hearts to. So, in our maze of life, let's take down the sign that says, "Nothing I do makes a difference anyway." Anybody else have that sign? Let's take it down. Put up one that reads, "What we do matters." Or maybe that Mother Teresa quote, "We cannot all do great things, but we can do small things with great love." Yeah? Or find your own words. Find what works for you to give you a sense of agency. Now, while we're thinking about these small things, let's talk a little bit about pacing. It's easy to choose challenges that are too big and then beat ourselves up if we're not able to succeed. That feeling of overwhelm makes us less resilient. In my first paid job, I was a dishwasher in a camp kitchen. So at the end of each meal, we'd collect all of the dirty dishes, and there would be this enormous mountain of them, hundreds and hundreds of dirty, gross dishes. And if I thought about the sheer quantity of work to do, it made me want to run screaming and quit my job. But I learned, just take it one dish at a time. So that's a sign that I put up in my maze now, one dish at a time. Breaking tasks down this way allows us to set achievable goals. When we meet these goals, it affirms our sense of agency, but it also reinforces our sense of self-worth. We want to challenge ourselves, but not so much that we're afraid of trying. We don't want to set ourselves up for failure. We want to build slowly, and over time our capacity expands. So maybe we put up a sign to remind ourselves, I can do hard things, or we can do hard things. You're welcome to borrow one dish at a time, if that works for you, or use the Lao Tzu quote, "The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step." And if walking isn't your usual mode of locomotion, just choose a different verb. Sometimes we're not going to gauge it exactly right. Another characteristic of resilient people is that they have a tolerance for failure. There's a mindset that turns mistakes and missteps into gifts and opportunities for learning. When we say something that lands wrong, instead of thinking, I'm so stupid, we can move to, that did not have the intended impact. What can I learn from this, and how can I do better next time? Perfectionism is an enemy of resilience. Any other perfectionists in recovery out there? So maybe we take down all of the signs that say things like, I need to be right. Anybody else have signs that says you need to be right? I need to be perfect to deserve love, and replace them with things like, life is messy. Failure is par for the course. It's okay to just try things out. If they don't work, I'll try something different. Those kinds of signs. As part of my dissertation research, I came across a study of theologies that are supportive of resilience. So feel free to translate the language if it doesn't work for you, but the authors found that positive religious coping strategies are based on the perception of a secure relationship with a supportive God or universe or community, and a sense that through life's challenges, meaning can be found. With these strategies, religious beliefs imply a joint effort of the individual and a spiritual guide that facilitates understanding and coping with a crisis. Negative religious coping methods, on the other hand, tend to reflect a less secure connection with a more judgmental God. The crisis can raise questions about potential abandonment by one's God, suggesting a test that must be passed through individual resources and a less certain sense of what the world holds. So this is why when people say things to us like, this is all part of God's plan, or God is testing you, or even worse, this is a sign of God's wrath, that's why it feels awful. If you have any of those signs still laying around, just burn them. If God is a meaningful concept for you, then put up signs that say something like, God is with me. God loves me unconditionally. Put those up all over the place. I would also question any signs that refer to karma or a belief that we somehow invite or choose the hardships that come into our lives. I've heard people say things like, I must have done something really awful in my past life to deserve this. Or, everything happens for a reason. Yeah, nope. Nope. Instead, try putting up signs that say things like, I have everything I need inside of me. I am wise and capable. I am loved and precious. I am held in love. When we ground our being in this belief that we're worthy, we're beloved, we're inherently good, then we grow in the directions that serve us and the world. We grow with that sinuous tenacity of a tree. Finding the light newly blocked on one side, we turn in another. At the very root, though, resilience requires hope. In a brilliant article called Radical Hope in Revolting Times, the authors present a framework for people of color to use in keeping hope alive. It has two axes, collective orientation to individual orientation and past to future. The time axis is labeled collective memory, and the collective to individual axis is labeled faith and agency. There's that agency word again. In the quadrant of past individual orientation, radical hope consists of ancestral pride. If we look at collective orientation, it's a connection to the history of oppression and resistance. In the future, individuals need a sense of meaning and purpose, while collectively, communities need the capacity to envision possibilities. So, to connect with the legacy of the past, maybe we could put up a sign that says, "I come from a long line of people who believed in decency and freedom." It's not a bad sign. Or, "I am open and I am willing, for to be hopeless would be a sin." You guys know this song, right? It dishonors those who go before us. Right? We're not going to dishonor those who go before us. Song lyrics make great signs. So do photographs of our ancestors, our biological ancestors, but also our spiritual ancestors and our heroes. As for the collective orientation, we were educated, most of us, to take pride in the accomplishments of the Western world, which was mostly white and mostly male. We learned history from the winners, and they won because they had an unfair advantage. So let's take all those posters down. I'm not saying there's not value there, but it's time to make room for other perspectives. So we can make sure that our list of spiritual ancestors and heroes includes folks who carried historically marginalized identities and fought for human rights and dignity for all. We can align ourselves with the indigenous people who survived genocide and still managed to maintain their dignity and their culture. We can align ourselves with the Jewish people liberated from the concentration camps and with the Japanese Americans interred here in the U.S. We can align ourselves with the people who escaped slavery and fought for equal rights and who fight institutionalized racism to this day. We can align ourselves with those glorious drag queens who threw bottles at police officers at Stonewall, right? These are our people. Taking courage from these stories of struggle, we orient ourselves toward the future and remind ourselves again that our actions and our choices matter. We use our power and our privilege to be better allies. We take our place in the movement of people who fight for human rights and dignity for all. We make the choice to believe that we shall overcome. A better way is possible. We can be the change we want to see in the world, right? All of these words, they resonate because this is what we're trying to do, to hold on to. And when we sink our roots into this history of struggle, it becomes abundantly clear that we humans have the capacity to endure unspeakably hard things. Becomes clear that we don't have it nearly as bad as most of our neighbors, our beloveds, who carry those historically marginalized identities in a society that at the moment is actively pushing back against their right to exist and to thrive. It becomes clear that this light that we're turning toward in our lovely, resinous way is a world where all people are free and safe and loved and able to be whole. This is the new cheese station, friends. This is where we're headed, and we cannot turn around. Maybe we could put up a sign that reads, "I'm living my life in service to collective liberation." Or maybe just a big arrow with the words, "Beloved community, that away." Before I close, I want to reread this quote from Maya Angelou referencing James Baldwin. There was very little serious conversation. The times were so solemn and the daily news so somber that we snatched mirth from unlikely places and gave servings of it to one another with both hands. I told Jimmy I was so glad to laugh. Jimmy said, "We survived slavery, and you know how we survived? We put surviving into our poems and into our songs. We put it into our folk tales. We danced surviving in Congo Square in New Orleans and put it in our pots when we cooked pinto beans. We knew if we wanted to survive, we had better lift our own spirits. So we laughed whenever we got the chance." Because see, resilience is not just about discipline and effort and hard work, though sometimes it does require that of us. It's also about ease and gentleness and joy and fun and love. To be resilient, we need to offer ourselves and each other radical compassion. When a family is dealing with a shocking death, trying to figure out what they should do, I always just tell them there are no rules. There are no rules for how to get through this. Just keep breathing and take care of each other. Just keep breathing and take care of each other. And maybe that's the best sign of all for life as well. You are smart people. These are challenging times, and there's no hiding from the fact that we're going to need to be resilient because the bad stuff keeps rolling in. But I meant what I said on Christmas Eve, that joy is a form of resistance. It's resistance to empire, it's resistance to oppression. Joy and laughter, creativity, natural beauty, these are not luxuries to be laid aside when the demands of living a principled life weigh on us. These are absolutely and utterly essential. So, as we navigate our way through this maze called 21st century living, make sure that you also have signs up that remind you to spend time with friends, to go for a walk, to have jokes and put up jokes and silly memes and pictures of cute baby animals, whatever works. Cook good food, eat good food, dance, paint, draw, write poetry, maybe paint some bowls for that Empty Bowls project. Stay human. Stay human. Be repositories of kindness and compassion. Be gentle with yourselves and one another. We'll get through whatever there is to be gotten through, and we'll get through it together. So be it, and so may it be.